Hey, welcome to your second episode of the podcast. Kieran, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you? And,
Doing
you know,
fine.
episode two, we're going to be talking about our experiences with our mock examinations. We've just done them in the last couple of weeks and we'll be getting our results. So, before we start talking about the main topic of the video, how's your week been, first of all?
Well, it's been quite an intense and sort of busy week, I would say, because we had a transactional writing mock exam the other day on Tuesday, and then another really big decision I have to make is whether or not to leave Shotton College, which is our current school, to go to UWC or CN, which is an IB United World College school in Norway. So that has been a really tough decision to make, and I'm just glad that I have sort of opinions from teachers, friends, and hopefully I would make the right decision. Kieran,
I want to say
how's your week been?
congratulations for, getting in. It was a very rigorous process, wasn't it?
Yeah, we started off with a simple application, just writing up stuff, and then we had a challenge day, which consisted of debate and an alumni interview, followed by a final panelist interview, which included the principals. There was an interviewer plus an alumni, so it was a really long journey. But I'm just glad it's over.
And what
Yeah.
about, yeah, so for me, it's been also kind of a not as tough week, but a lot of things have happened. Obviously, transactional. Monday last week we had our orals, and obviously MUN last weekend, and
Yes, congrats for getting outstanding delegate in your committee. That was
thanks.
really well done. First award.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips to any aspiring MUNers out there?
Well, MUN. I think you should just like enjoy MUN. Like, if it's your first conference, don't go for the awards in your first con. Just try and enjoy yourself first of all. And I think once you get comfortable with this environment and you actually enjoy yourself in MUN, you'll feel like winning awards is much more natural. If that
Yeah,
makes
that's
sense.
great advice. Yeah, I agree because uh of course these are online conferences, so they're much different in terms of criteria for getting awards as long as just how easy it is to get awards. So, Kieran, we got our new boom arms. Hopefully our sound quality sounds much, much, much better.
Yeah, I like the sound warning in the start of the first episode. But yeah, we've got boom arms. We're now a bit more professional, I would say.
Yeah, like got the pop filters along as the boom arm. Hopefully our sound quality sounds better, so there would not be a need for a sound warning at the start.
Yeah. So if you're wondering what specific boom arm I have the Gear Heavy Duty boom arm from Amazon. It's not the most expensive. It's like I think around $25 US dollars. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's right. And in terms of the mic we're using, if you haven't caught up of what mic we're using, we're actually using the HyperX Solocast we both picked up on the last day of our mocks, which was a very interesting day. We had to scavenge all around Shatin, Mongkok, Jamshid and we eventually found one after messaging a bunch of shops. It was a fun
yeah,
day.
it was a fun way to end off what was like a tense couple weeks of mocks, and that's why we're here to reflect on it. So I want to briefly talk about our experience with recording our first episode. So I mean, it was quite interesting. The first time we like either of us have actually recorded a podcast. So it was quite nerve. It was I was very nervous.
Yeah,
So
me too. It was a very different sort of scenario because there's low optionality and you have to somehow say something and fill up the awkward silences. But it's certainly better in terms of personal development as you'll be able to communicate better in the sense as long as just be able to socialize better, which I think is a very beneficial thing.
yeah. So why don't we actually get into the main topic of the video?
Let's go for it.
So
First impression of the mocks. Let's
okay.
let's try
So
to explain it with one word on our feelings about the monks. Gonna go first?
all right, okay, go for it.
Um, Mocks. I would say challenging.
I
What
would
word would you choose?
I would say complicated.
Yeah, I think challenging and complicated describe the mocks the best because, quite frankly, it's the first time we've had full tests for most of them where we were under time constraints, along as being in the school hall, which was the atmosphere was completely different.
It's quite different when you're doing class assessments, which is quote unquote like not important in a certain way. And I think a lot of students who have been like, not really revising or caring about these class assessments, like were brought into a sense of reality once mocks came around. And I think like, me and Hayden have been like, taking GCSE quite seriously. So I think
Yeah.
it wasn't, at least in that regard, it wasn't like, oh, we had to we like panicked. But I would just say like, as you said, it's our first experience in a hall and it's a completely different experience when you're in a hall in rows and you're in complete silence and there's a huge timer in the front of the hall. So yeah,
Yeah,
and
in
with
fact, there's
invigilators there as well. It's
uh-huh.
insane.
Yeah, in fact, you remember for our math exams, as long as other exams where we were sitting in the hall, usually everyone's there, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes early. We just sit there. However, we couldn't start because there was one person missing. So it was really scary just sitting there and waiting for the last person to turn up so we can start. Because once everyone gets there, theoretically, we could just start off the exam and finish early based on the schedule.
Yeah. So if you want to know what subjects we took, I think we addressed it in the first episode, but want to just briefly run
Uh
through
huh.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I go for it? Okay, so we're both taking economics. It's the Pearson Edexcel version, 9 to 1 economics, as long as Pearson Edexcel history. On top of that, we're taking the CIE Cambridge Computer Science, Coordinate Science extended version, as long as taking extended maths and English AQA, which is the GCSE's one, which was. Oh, we haven't actually taken the GCSE English ones, but those are the subjects we've
And
taken
yeah.
on top of our
Yeah, and he's
languages.
taken
Yeah.
Chinese second lang and I've taken French. So I mean they're both pretty similar in like the same like format of tests, it's just obviously different languages. Um so I want to
Yeah.
like quickly just rank how you, okay, let's say before the mocks, how did you like, what were you the most confident? And at the
Before
end
the
of the
mo-
exam, what did you like, in the end of the mocks, what did you find like the most easiest?
I think it'd be quite agreeable that we were both somewhat confident in a sense for this coordinate science mocks because we often would do past papers we find online and we would note down the questions we got wrong. It just got really repetitive in a sense where, for example, questions on increased rate of reaction and the factors that surround it, we just kept on churning out the same questions all over again, somewhat ingrained, and it got ingrained into our minds, which was
We were going,
very good. So I think coordinate science
you
is
know,
something, it's definitely the subjects we're both most
yeah, we're going
confident
through
in.
the questions, so like there were so many like questions, like as you said, rate of reaction, that we went to the point where we were like so comfortable that we were kind of skipping the questions as well. So I mean, and that I think the rate of reaction question did actually come up, I think. What did it? I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah, it came up on the chemistry paper, and funny enough, it's quite embarrassing to say, but I lost 2 marks on the chemistry paper, and both of them were from rate of
Really,
reaction
really.
questions. Yeah, both of them. One of them was regarding, I think it was regarding something to do with concentration, and the second one was something to do with surface area, I believe. But yeah, the 2 marks I lost were both from
It
surface
also give,
area
yeah.
question.
That
I mean,
also
from
reminds me of
rate of
the pedigree
reactions.
tree.
Oh yes, the pedigree tree.
Yeah.
You want to talk
We
more
went through like
about
the
it?
exact question. Like I'm not even joking. Like the exact question on the day of the exam, and like a pretty similar one came up in the actual test.
Yeah, we legit practiced it in the morning of doing the exam. We just hopped on a call, did some pedigree tree questions, and guess what? We walk in and There's like a very similar question in there.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It goes to show how past papers are really important when revising for GCSEs.
And that, like, smooth transition into like how we actually revise. Past papers are just one of the ways that we actually revise for these mock examinations, and obviously what we're going to do for the actual exams in April and May. So along with past paper questions, we did flashcards. We wrote down. I mean, you wrote down questions on spreadsheet. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, I'll go for it. Google Sheets is your best friend when it comes to exam. I'm being quite honest here, but Google Sheets is really, really important. And I say this because Google Sheets allows you to write the question on one column and then writing the answer on the second column. And I think Ali Abdal pioneered this revision method, so all credit goes to him. And basically, when you're revising for active recall, which we could get in more into the study technique later, active recall, we could make the text, the answers specifically white. And whilst you go through the questions, you can just sort of click on the box and see the answer or turn the text back into black, which is very, very, very useful. You gonna talk more about Anki flashcards?
Yeah, So I mean, if you're familiar with Ali, obviously, he also emphasized, using flashcards, and I think the best flashcard application out there is Anki. Obviously, we're not sponsored or anything, but it's just an application that, I mean, I've thoroughly used for subjects such as science for the mock examinations, and coincidentally, science was one of my I got one of my best grades for the mock quiz science. So um I think the main thing that we have to, like, when we're talking about Anki is definitely active recall and how it's much more beneficial than passive learning, obviously, which I don't think 90% of the students in our year, I think, passively learn for the exam.
Yeah, definitely. Like, based on, I believe you said you had a conversation with a few top scoring IB students or GCSE students at other ESF schools, and you mentioned that they also used active recall and Anki. So it goes to show how effective and useful it is when it comes to revision. In fact, I'll probably say here, but I'm currently in the midst of building a tool using, in terms of the tech stack, it's using Python as long as I believe it's called Electron JS, which is basically a native Windows slash Mac OS application that allows you to type up your flashcards in Google Sheets, and then using this app, it's going to convert it into Anki flashcard decks, which you can sync up. I'll hopefully talk more about this when I sort of finish up building this sometime soon.
Yeah, I would say that'd be very useful. I mean, I would 100% use it because I think the thing which puts off a lot of people while using flashcards is definitely writing them. And like, even though you're typing them on Anki, I think it's still pretty like a rigorous task to you know put in the effort to write the flashcards, and then you have to learn them and you have to review them. So I think it's definitely time consuming, and obviously, Hayden's gonna develop an application which can help speed up the process. But if you want to achieve the best grades, you definitely have to put in the time if you want to benefit the most from the such techniques. You wanna talk about that?
Yup, sorry, I was muted right over there. Basically, I believe that Anki flashcards are very, very useful. The concept, the motion of clicking and being able to provided the traffic light. But the problem is the process of creating Anki flashcards are very, very repetitive and monotonous. So I think having a very nice UI, or as I'm doing, building Google Sheets, sort of productivity tool to convert to Anki would be beneficial to every student if they use Anki.
And I don't know, you've been talking about something you're gonna be developing. I don't think I've ever told you this, but I'm also in the process of developing a blog, which has articles
Ooh,
on
yeah,
different
go for
revision
it.
strategies, productivity, and just the online world in general. So
Mm-hmm.
I might be making an article talking about Anki and the reasons for incorporating it in your revision. So yeah, stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of the episode. I believe it was Ali Abdal's and Tamer Abdal's podcast, Not Overthinking. They had an episode called Why You Should Convince Your Friend to Start a Blog. And yeah, I think having a blog, podcast, some sort of online presence is vital in this current day and age. It's something you can't miss out because before you could only reach a small community, small network of people, but now just putting it online in a few clicks brings you up to thousands, if not millions, of people online.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you should
so
consider it as
I real
well.
yeah, I feel like if I if everything's finalized and I end up in Norway, then a blog would definitely be really interesting. It also goes to the fact goes back to the idea of journaling and how journaling is something that I'm really interested in starting, but I haven't been able to put the dedication in. So yeah, I think journaling is something we should both actually embark and start sometime soon.
Yeah, I think, just like, writing down things that we've learned through the podcast or just things that, we've learned from our lives. I think reflection is ultimately something really important that I think everyone should be doing if they want to live a, lively and fulfilling life. I think, it can help prevent, negativity in your life if you understand like, why something went wrong or why you did well in something. I think reflection is just very important when it comes to, anything in general.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of the spoken endorsement presentation, which I recently did on Tuesday, Monday. Basically as part of our GCSE English, we had to do a speaking and listening component, and you basically have to choose a topic or an argument or some sort of idea theme to talk about in a 5 to 8 minute presentation. And in fact, I chose the topic of Stoicism, which is an ancient Greek sort of ancient Roman Empire philosophy on self improvement and the idea of being a better person. And Marcus Aurelius, which was a Roman emperor who also happened to journal journal when he was free. He basically wrote a series of personal notes or ideas in a book called Meditations, and I actually brought this up in my presentation. It basically talks about how you could really improve yourself if you journal down your thoughts, what you're thinking about, and just writing things down on a paper, which I think is really inspiring, given that Roman Empire. It was during a time where the Roman emperor was on top of everybody. It was during a time where they were slaves, which was legal as long as being able to conquer, just live anywhere and do anything. And yet, a Roman emperor would choose to journal and write down his own thoughts for self improvement shows how beneficial it really is.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of those philosophers, those ancient Greek, Roman philosophers out there. I think we should like, start studying a bit more. They're obviously have know something that we don't.
Yeah, in fact, just this idea I brought up in my spoken endorsement, which gained quite a bit of traction, I would say. And it's this idea of whenever you say, "Oh, I don't have time," you immediately sort of think, "Yeah, I don't have the time. I can't do this." Well, I'm just genuinely not free. But how I phrased this is I'm not saying I came up with this idea. I came across it somewhere, which I don't remember where I came across it, but it's this idea of saying, "Oh, I don't have time" is really problematic. You should rather phrase it as, "Oh, I do have time. It's just that I'm actively choosing not to use my time to spend it on that certain event." And by putting time in your control, you sort of take responsibility for everything you do, which could lead you to live more productive lives.
Yeah. I want to bring out, something kind of funny. So remember Confucius?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, reminds me of,
definitely.
those ancient, he was a philosopher, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was.
Yeah, and then YFS as well.
Yeah, YFS, great times.
Yeah.
In fact, I really wish we should have back then. I don't think we were that good at coming up with ideas, building startups. Our idea was really bad. Now I think about it.
Yeah. If you want us to like, okay, so basically YFS is basically like a short boot camp during a weekend where teenagers like us basically pitch an idea to a panel of so-called fair judges who basically have the opportunity to invest. And so just think about like Dragon's Den in that way.
Yeah, that's a
So
good
yeah.
comparison.
So I think we did that in like 2018, was it?
2017, 2018,
I think yeah,
sometime along there.
a couple years ago.
And our idea was really bad. Okay, our presentation was decent in terms of aesthetics, but our idea, it just didn't stand out. Like now I think about it, I completely wouldn't have invested in this sort of company.
Yeah.
You told them about the idea.
I'm not 100% like I don't really remember it, but I think it was something to do about like something similar to Khan Academy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was like a how should we phrase it? A platform for learning. So like Skillshare, but the classes are not created by individual content creators, and we had to personally create it, which doesn't sound like a very efficient and creative business plan.
Yeah, I think we were like so invested into the presentation, like the aesthetics and how it looked rather than the actual content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you wanna go back to the marks? I think we sort of drifted off there.
Yeah.
Let's rank our subjects. Go rank your
Like quick,
easiest to hardest subjects to revise for.
just like quick rank, no explanation, just like quick rank.
Quick rank.
All right. So the most easiest, like, is it like before the exams or like after?
No, just like afterthoughts after the exam.
Okay, I thought the easiest paper was definitely French, 100%. Then I would probably say math. Like, okay, so basically, Hayden does extended mathematics plus additional. I only do extended because I don't know why, but I mean, I find it like not too hard, so I found the papers relatively straightforward, except paper six. Paper six was quite challenging. It was kind of like a mathematical investigation, right?
Yeah, so like if any of the audience here listens and happens to do the exact same, what's the class code? It's International Mathematics. It's 0607, I believe.
Yep.
If you happen to do paper six and you have any tips you want us to share to the audience, go for it. Email us at hey at recallos.com. We finally set up the email domain, so yeah, send us an email there.
Yeah, no.
RecallOS is recallos.com.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you must have known how to spell recall since you stumbled across our podcast.
Yeah, and obviously, one thing which has changed from the last episode is we actually got our website, up and running.
Finally.
Yeah, we're super excited.
We'll put the link in the description, but if you want to find us, it's pod.recallos.com. Well, it's hosted on Notion, and we used a very cool tool called Fruition Site to put a custom domain on Notion, which hopefully, just finger crossed, we could somehow email and reach the creator of Fruition, which is the sort of shortcut or tool to convert Notion into a domained website. Hopefully we can get him on the podcast to have a conversation.
Yeah, let us know if you want more like guests on a podcast. It's kind of fun to have me and Hayden obviously talking, but I think having a third person will be, I think, a lot more cooler as well. We can learn more about other people that we're also interested in. So if you have anyone that you want to recommend to us, or even if you want to actually be on our podcast, and email us.
Yeah, email us. Okay, continue. You stopped at maths.
All right. Yeah. Third, I would probably say science.
Yeah, science.
We did a lot of revisions, so
Definitely.
Fourth, I would probably say CS.
Computer science.
Yeah. Fifth, I'd probably say history.
Econ and English. Okay, so the pattern I realize is that for subjects where there are no set correct answer and is open to interpretation, we often find much more challenging. So I think what we learned from this is that we're more of the the logical or math side, I would say, in a sense, rather than the creative or linguistic side, where you basically have no correct or wrong answer. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's like, when you put your own opinions into like writing and there's I think a sense of like difficulty when you know that there's not like a set right answer, and it's kind of like I think we need to embrace more, open, like having an open opinion on different questions. But I just feel like, me and Hayden are not the best at it. Obviously there's people who are out there who are brilliant at history, brilliant at econ. So, I think we're just much more of a, logical individuals.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so in terms of my beliefs, I think I think, no, okay, let's say easiest. I definitely think computer science in a sense. I felt most confident walking in and sitting the test. So on top of the list, I would put computer science. And then after that, I would put coordinate science. After that, will followed by um, I would say the extended maths. I could have done much, much better on extended maths. Oh, in fact, I still have to ask my maths teacher to give me some extra marks back because I realized I deserve some extra marks back on the paper. And after that, Chinese. Chinese is a very interesting subject also because there's a whole spectrum of people taking second language because I'm not taking first language and second language. There's just a variety of people from people who are somewhat proficient at Chinese, as long as people who are really good at Chinese but just don't want to spend time on taking first language. So the exam itself it's very interesting in a sense because there are a whole wide range of scores given out to the students. And after that, history, econ, and then English. English is one of the most challenging and hardest subjects in my opinion.
Plus, we do two different courses for English. We do English language and English literature. Double.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, let us know if you study in the UK and do you guys both take the language paper and the literature, or do you just take either one of them? We're interested to hear about that.
Yep, and obviously, in the UK, those in the UK have their like all their exams canceled, and also, I think one thing which changed from the last podcast is like a lot of our subjects, examinations actually got canceled, which puts more importance for the mock exams and
Yeah, definitely.
prior assessments that we've done, in year 10 and obviously in the first couple months of year 11.
Yeah. So, reflection. I feel like reflection is really important.
Yep.
What do you think overall, in the sense, went well?
I think like, I managed to stay, put myself, I managed to keep myself together. I didn't let, the examinations like, overcome me in a sense, but rather I managed to stay calm and, answer the questions relatively well to the best of my ability. I think, of course, I did better in some subjects than others, and obviously we'll be getting to that later in the podcast. But I think as a whole, I really felt like I dealt with the mocks pretty well. I think the revision obviously helped a lot. Obviously, calling you, obviously, and just going through past papers and everything helped a lot. And obviously,
Yeah.
active recall takes time. You can't just actively recall something a week before the exam. You got to put in like the effort. You got to start at least a couple weeks before to get your brain storing that information into your long-term memory so you can be able to actively recall it during the exam. So I think that's what went well for me. How about you?
Y- Yeah, I think what went well actually was the fact that we managed to stay composed. We weren't extremely stressed. There were definitely people we knew that they just were really stressed and felt really tense and s- believed that their whole life depended on it. I think that's certainly something that we didn't feel in a sense. I don't know if it's good or negative, but I don't think we were that stressed. And I think what went well was that, of course, we achieved decent grades for them. Do you think we should talk about our grades for them?
So something kind of funny. So where me and Hayden had like a kind of a mini competition before
Yeah.
the exam as a sense of, motivation.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think competition in the sense is very important.
all right, so we're gonna not kind of publicly expose our grades to see who got
Okay.
better.
Okay. Well, okay. What paper did you do I mean, what subject slash paper did you do the complete best in? And tell us your score for it.
All right, before we start, obviously, this is all for fun. Obviously, we're not,
Yeah,
taking
we're
this
not here to
seriously.
brag or
Yeah.
anything. We're just to say
All right, I think French. Uh,
French.
I got. I'm not gonna say what paper, but I got full marks in one of the paper, and I got like
Ooh.
lost 1 mark for another paper. So I think French was definitely my strongest.
I think my strongest subject was definitely computer science. The whole paper was out of 125, and I managed to achieve 120 or 121 for it. So I was really happy with that.
Nice. For computer science, I definitely did a lot worse. I was obviously still in the top mark band, so I guess that was good. I was just
Yeah,
d-
we were very competitive when it comes to the scores, and would beat. Yeah, but our school is really competitive when it comes to things like this. We often don't ask them, what grade did you get? We ask them, what score did you get? Which goes to show a lot about the education sort of system and perspective in Hong Kong.
yeah. And for math, I think I think we did like about the same, I guess.
Yeah, about the same. But I think we both achieved like 90 plus averages, which, yeah, I mean, if you want an A star, you basically have to. Um, yeah, I think finding someone to 1v1 them on grades, of course, someone in a similar spectrum or skill level is very motivating when it comes to attempting and trying to do the best in your exams.
Yeah, I totally agree. So okay, so I want to briefly talk about econ and history. All right, so okay, it's kind of funny. So basically, for econ, for history, let's talk about history first. So history, if those of you in the UK will probably be more familiar with the level 1 to level 9 grading. So I was 2 marks off level 9, so that's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, but as long as your predicted grades are and based on class participation, past assignments, etc. Like I think we're still getting a few more assessments coming ahead, but the teachers basically said the marks won't completely accumulate or determine your final grade. So that's actually good news. In fact, I was a 1 mark off a 9 for history. Times like this happen.
Yeah. So before you kind of wrap up this kind of section on mocks, I want to talk about like what we could do differently for the actual exams.
Yes, we should actually. Um, what would you do differently? I certainly know what I would do differently. You wanna go first?
I think for those subjects we mentioned, econ history, subjects that we definitely under like achieved in terms of in comparison to other subjects. I would just say doing more practice questions. It's like a longer, like do the 9 and 16 mark, for econ, and then practicing 60 mark for history. I just think you gotta get more familiar with the type of questions, how much you're supposed to write under time conditions, which I think was something that I think not just us but a lot of students actually struggled with. Timing was ridiculous. You have so much to write in just 90
Yeah.
minutes. It's actually insane.
Yeah,
But I think with practice,
definitely.
definitely gonna.
For history econ, the clock is against you. What I would really do differently, just reimagining, repicturing myself in this scenario of doing the exam is I would definitely spend much more time on those high mark questions and just allocate time better for those exams, definitely. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, okay, let's talk about the actual exams because we do have our Cambridge exams still coming up, and those exams are going ahead. What do you think
In
about
about a
them?
month's
Yeah.
time, right? In about a month's time. So obviously, it feels kind of weird. It feels like we just did our mocks. I don't know why,
Yeah, we did them
but
at the end of
yeah,
January, but here we are, March, mid-March, in fact. March blew past so quickly.
yeah. I mean, obviously, we got to start, grinding again. But like, I think I'm obviously a bit nervous. Obviously, for the Cambridge subjects, this is the real deal we're talking about. We're talking about, this is the actual thing. This is what's gonna, determine our grades. So obviously, it's a bit nervous, and I'm a bit nervous in comparison to the mocks. But I think the mocks is definitely very helpful. When talking about the actual experience, sitting in a hall and time management and etc. So I feel obviously I'm more confident with that regard, but obviously, we gotta start revising again
Definitely.
if we want to achieve those top grades we did for the
Yeah, we
mocks.
actually have to start revising. And we have our math exam. I think math, it all comes down to practice, past papers, understanding the concepts. And we're just going to hope for the best, try our best, and hopefully achieve a good score.
Yeah.
How are we going to actually revise for
So
it? Let's have a plan for how we're going to revise for the actual exams.
okay, so personally, like I was planning to like do another like past paper. So like for example, math, just do an extended past paper, and then like see what I got wrong, and then I'm gonna like revise those like topics. For example, let's say I mess up like a Venn diagram, I have to like revise sets, and then let's say I get trigonometry like somewhat correct, like I get most of it correct, then obviously I would allocate more time to sets rather than trigonometry. So I think time management is definitely the key. Obviously it hasn't been so long since we did the mocks, so obviously there might be some information that we still remember, we can still recall, and there's others that we have completely forgotten. So I would say it'd be not the most smart thing to do if you want to like go through all your flashcards again,
Mhm.
but I would say just focus on the things that we forgot or we got wrong in the mocks.
Yeah, we actually have to start revising. I'm just sitting here thinking about it, and yeah, time is coming. We have to put in all our effort and hope for the best. Yeah,
You know, 2 years of hard work,
yeah,
comes down to this.
2 years. The 2 years felt really, really short, in my opinion. It just
Yeah,
the course itself was really fun. No, I think fun is the wrong word to use, but I would say interesting because there certainly were parts that were relatively boring, but there were also parts that just amazed us and would really put in our interest, especially like the programming and the networks and security for computer science, which is really useful because personally, when we build our own projects, we're really engaged and it seems useful for us in real life.
and, it's insane how far we've come. Sitting in like, you know, 333, and uh, in the first couple of weeks in and computer science, absolutely like at least for me, overwhelmed with the content, and now being so confident with programming. I think it's been a amazing two
Oh yeah,
years.
this segues nicely. In fact, we've asked our computer science system, Mr. Baumgarten, and he agreed to come on a podcast interview with us. So look out for that. It's going to come very, very, very soon.
I think the following episode, isn't it? Right?
Yes, we are hopefully recording it next week.
Yep. If you wanna, learn a bit more about him, before we're gonna talk with him, visit out his website. I think it's
Dot com. Yep, it
pbaumgarten.com.
is PBAUMGARTEN.com. Ooh, hopefully I spelled that right. Um,
Yeah.
yes. Any final advice or things you want to mention?
So I think the main thing to take away from this episode is just, find the best way to revise for you.
Hmm.
And whether you have mocks or exams coming up, or whether you have no exams and all your exams are canceled, I think you really gotta sit down and find out the best way you can revise. And because everyone has revises in different ways, me and Hayden revise in different ways. He uses Google spreadsheet questions, I use Anki flashcards.
Yeah, there isn't one way. It sounds
So
really. Oh, sorry to interrupt you there.
so yeah, I was just saying, find the best way you can revise so you can, achieve the best grade you can.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it sounds really cliche, but yeah, you just have to learn how to learn and not just learn how to the content. You have to learn how to study, learn how to understand things. And I think how to very nicely sum this up is if you find studying very easy, then you obviously aren't studying very well because it is it's those very challenging, mentally demanding tasks that and it requires you like it requires deep work and deep understanding in a mental state to truly understand. Those are the parts where you can truly define as studying and not just reading a textbook before sleep or something like that. Yeah.
Good advice. So, before we go to like, the insight of the
Mm-hmm.
week, I want to like, just quickly, run down like from the next episode, we're going to be, including, some pretty interesting segments. We're going to obviously have a catch up at the start of the episode. Obviously, just talking about, stuff, random stuff. And obviously we're going to recommend a product or app or website
Yeah.
every episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you want to recommend something for us to look at, obviously, email us. And obviously we're going to have a segment called Ask Anything. So you have any questions that you want to ask to obviously very experienced computer science
Yeah.
teacher, Mr. Baumgarten,
Send it over.
feel free to
In fact, anything related to technology or tech products, in fact, career paths regarding computer science, software engineering, just leave us an email and hopefully we'll get the chance to ask him about it.
yeah, or even questions that you may be too scared to
A
ask
teacher.
your
Yeah,
teacher.
just like anything you want to understand. This is like a deep dive and sort of sneak peek into what a teacher is like rather than just sort of having this relationship where they teach you, you go home, you do homework, you hand them in. This is like a deep dive and truly understanding what it means to be a teacher.
Yeah, and we're so fortunate and grateful to have this opportunity to talk with a teacher who's so open to us,
Hmm.
and obviously in our I think our whole experience like in school in general, we've never had a teacher so open, and
Yeah, all the credit goes to him.
open to yeah.
Perhaps, actually, no, I'm not going to hedge on this. I'll just say he is the best teacher we've encountered straight up, definitely. There's no need to hedge or just say, one of the best. He is the best, undoubtedly.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty straightforward. So
Hmm.
we're very excited to obviously record that episode next week. But I think we should finish off, with the insight of the week. Do you have any interesting philosophical message or quote that
Yes,
you want us
I
to
love this
discuss?
section. Perhaps after this, while I'm finding you want to share something
Nah, I think let's get straight into the insight.
philosophical.
Yeah.
You have something to say?
Nah, nah, sorry. Go.
Okay. Maybe I'll say something that I prepped for my UWC interview. I prepared a bunch of sort of ideas or things I could bring up to the to the interview. So okay, let's find one that seems interesting. Um okay, I think this is quite interesting and nuanced. I think I remember I came across this in an article by I think a doctor professor, and then Ali Abdal further simplified and wrote about this, and it's the idea of why motivation is a myth. And this is just really really interesting, and the reason is because motivation. Okay, I'm quoting the article directly. Motivation, broadly speaking, operates on the erroneous assumption that a particular mental or emotional state is necessary to complete a task. What it basically means is motivation is basically saying I have to feel a certain way or feel inspired in a certain way in order to complete a task. However, this is extremely problematic because we often put too much time in waiting for the motivation to strike. However, on the other hand, discipline is doing something regardless of how you're feeling it. So you should develop discipline as opposed to finding motivation. What do you make of that?
And, motivation is something I think a lot of people claim to, be lacking, oh, I cannot do something because I'm not motivated enough to do it, or I want to do, I'm motivated to do something, but, they don't actually do it. And I think discipline is something which I think is an important factor when it comes to motivation. And I think, what Ali Abdal said, I think you really have to, deep down think, what is motivation, How can you achieve this? And,
Yeah, in some way,
yeah, what do you have to say?
motivation juxtaposes productivity. And the reason I say this is because productivity is this idea of being able to intentionally do what you are trying to do. And if we if we spend too much time waiting for a specific feeling or inspiration to come, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing because for creative work, sometimes inspiration is really, really important. But I think for genuine stuff like homework, motivation is not something you should strive for, but rather it should be discipline and having set systems in order to do something regardless of how you're feeling is the way to go when it comes to much more challenging situations in higher education, university, etc.
Yeah, I think that, brilliantly summed up the insight of the week. I love this segment a lot,
Is this
Maybe I'll come next week with an
Yeah,
interesting
go for
message
it.
or quote.
This segment hopefully inspires you with enlightenment to live more intentionally and be able to be much more productive. Not motivated, but productive, because productive is ultimately
Yeah.
the goal you want to strive for, and not to find motivation. Yeah. You want to sum up this episode?
Yeah, so that's should be the end of our second episode of the Recall Pod, all about our mock examinations and our final examinations coming up in the next couple of weeks. And obviously, we are gonna try and film record an episode once a week. And obviously, stay tuned for our next episode with Mr. Baumgarten about programming and just being a computer science teacher. So if you have any questions, as we said before, just email us at hey@recallos.com if I stated it
Yep,
correctly.
that is correct. And thanks for listening. We'll see you. You'll hear us on the next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please be sure to share it with friends or family. Also, be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe to us on Spotify. You can also send us an email at hey@recallos.com. See you in the next episode.